What's going on, guys? Nathan Barna here, coming at you with another video. Today I wanted to talk about something very important, something very relevant with a lot of the challenges that we are currently facing as individuals and as a society today. And that is the concept of resilience versus prevention. You know, with a lot of the marketing, a lot of the misinformation, and a lot of the fear mongering, the scare tactics, all of these different avenues have led us to believe that the best way to, whether it's getting sick or whether it's injuring yourself or, anything that's going to cause physical or mental, emotional harm, we've been led to believe that the best way to not have that happen is to prevent it from ever happening and from doing everything that you can do to make sure you don't put yourself in a situation that is going to make it possible for that to be a situation, for that to happen to you. And what I want to express here through this video, and something that I try to express and relate and teach to all of my clients and the athletes I work with, and really, everybody that I can have these conversations with is that, the same way that we go to the gym because we feel that in order, it's not we feel that, it's a requirement. In order to get stronger in the gym, we have to put a stress on our body. In order to, get stronger, to be able to handle whatever situation you might be in that requires you to lift something, you must first purposely put yourself in a position, i.e., go to the gym and give your body a form of resistance that's going to give it the signal that it needs to get stronger so that it can handle and be resilient to any circumstance that might cause you to have to utilize that strength. And really, that's the whole reason that we go to the gym, and that's the whole reason that we exercise our bodies. If we go through life trying to stay away from any kind of circumstance that's going to cause us to lift a heavy object that requires a certain amount of strength, then inevitably we're going to weaken ourselves, and through the idea of prevention, we're actually going to do more harm in the long run and potentially shorten our lifespan because we don't have adequate strength and adequate resilience to be able to handle the various different circumstances life had to throw at us. If you look back at our ancestors, if you weren't able to do basic human functions, and some of the research I've done says that our ancestors needed to be able to function at a high school gymnast level just in order to be able to handle the daily circumstances of life. So, if you look around in our society and people that are barely even able to get up and down stairs or get in and out of cars and reach their VO2 max walking from the waiting area to the doctor's office, it's pretty easy to see that this idea of prevention, at least in the physical sense that we're discussing right now, hasn't led us to, actually preventing anything. We're actually doing more harm and creating more injuries and more dysfunction by not putting ourselves in a position and training our bodies and moving our bodies and exercising our bodies and purposely placing stress on ourselves so that we can grow from that stress. Again, this is the whole reason we go to the gym, and this is just the physical aspect of it. And a lot of people can, this makes sense to a lot of people. And this is the whole concept of hormesis that I'm driving here. It's the idea that a little bit of something that can potentially be harmful is actually a benefit and can make you stronger and more resilient in the long run. You would much rather be resilient to something and be able to handle it if you were exposed to it than having to go through your whole life preventing, in that preventative mindset for me from ever even being exposed to that thing in the first place. And this is also true when it comes to pathogens and diseases and viruses, and especially in this whole COVID pandemic and this whole, vaccination pandemic, where this whole concept of prevention is being utilized against us in the name of health, which paradoxically is actually making us more sick and more disease-ridden and shortening our lifespans and creating more problems and more profit for other people than it is giving us. So just in the same way that you train your body to be resilient, to handle the physical stresses of life, the same is true when it comes to being exposed to different pathogens in the environment and different potential toxins or potential things that could cause harm if you were exposed at a high level. When I go through, how I approach this process is the same way that I approach training. I know that if I want to get stronger and be resilient in physical sense, I need to expose myself and put myself in situations through training that are going to help me be more resilient to that exposure. And when I want to build up my immune system, I know that instead of trying to kill everything and taking that preventative approach, I actually need to expose myself to the capacity that my body can currently handle to different things that could potentially cause disease and illness in my body. It's the whole idea of a vaccination without actually being exposed to all the toxic shit that's in a vaccination. It's how we've been able to survive and even get up to this point in our evolution as a species. We had to be exposed, whether it was through choice or not. We were exposed to all of these different things, and through that exposure, we created resilience to those things, to be able to handle those things. And if you think about all the different diseases that we've had to make it through as a species, and yes, some of those diseases wiped out a large number of people, but again, when you look at the broad scope of things, from the dawn of our species to our current to where we're at currently, we've had to go through those things. And if you just look at the concept of evolution as a whole, if there's certain genes that were being expressed that weren't suited to handle the stressors of the environment, then potentially the people carrying those genes didn't make it to pass on those genes. But the problem that we face now is all of these weaker expressions and people not taking care of themselves through proper nutrition, sleep, hydration, breathing, thinking, and movement. we're allowing these potentially weaker versions of ourselves to pass through generations. And when you compound that on top of not taking care of ourselves to have the best expression of our health, then if you look around, you can see what the product of that is. We have more obesity, more diabetes, more autism, more heart problems, heart diseases, more cancer, all across the board. All of these things have been on a steady climb. And ironically, at the same time that, we have the largest healthcare system and the most doctors and the most researchers and the most scientists that we've ever had. So, if you're a thinking person, you can see that, what we're currently doing and how we're currently going about these situations isn't working out very well for us. And again, this comes back to the idea of resilience and hormesis. Sometimes you have to purposely put yourself in situations that are going to create the stimulus so that you can grow. And this is predicated on the fact that you must be providing your body with the resources that it needs in terms of all the 6 foundation principles that I just mentioned: breathing, sleeping, movement, hydration, nutrition, and thinking. You have to have those things maximized so that your body can have the resources to respond to the stimuluses that you give it. In the same way, again, if you were training hard, trying to create a stimulus in the gym, but you weren't eating properly or sleeping properly or managing yourself effectively, then you're just going to end up hurting yourself and not being able to recover from those stresses. So taking care of yourself and managing yourself properly is a prerequisite to being able to handle the stressors and grow from the stressors that you might potentially be exposed to, that are going to help you become more resilient to handle whatever it is that might get thrown your way. So, that's why me personally, I don't remember the last time. It's been probably years now that I've actually had to miss work because of an illness or because of getting sick, or hell, even I don't remember the last time I got a cold. And that's not bragging. That's just the way that I manage myself and the way that I pay attention to the stresses of my body and giving my body what it needs. I'm able to continue to grow the immunity and the resilience, not by not putting myself in the position to be exposed to these things, but by first giving myself the resources, and then second, purposefully putting myself in positions that may expose me to things that could cause potential harm, but knowing that I have the resources to adapt and grow and have the resilience from those potential harms. And I think at this time that we're in, this is something that's very important for people to realize. And I think more and more people are starting to wake up to this kind of concept. And that's why you have things like the terrain theory now, kind of in opposition of the germ theory, where, the germ theory is the kind of the idea that we just need to kill everything and we need to live in this sterile, clean environment. But now we're starting to see more and more that, we live with germs and pathogens and bacteria and viruses. Every time that we breathe, some studies show that we're breathing in about 50,000 types of different germs and bacteria just on every single breath. And if you kind of look at the terrain theory, it says that we need to not try to kill everything, but we need to learn how to create the best terrain and best environment in ourselves and in our external environment to maximize the body's own functionality and capability to be resilient to potential harm. And again, this goes against a lot of what we're being told today. So if you want to truly maximize your health and optimize your performance, you need to put yourself in the position to create the stimulus that's going to help you create the resilience to these things, so that you can have the freedom to know that you have the adequate terrain in your body. You're living in harmony with these different pathogens and different bacteria and all these things that literally outnumber our own human cells 10 to 1. You want to live in harmony with these things, and they can actually work for you instead of trying to go to battle. And this whole idea that, everything is a war against nature, where we lose sight of the fact that we ourselves are part of that nature that we're trying to go to war against. We've evolved from this nature, and we need to learn how to live in harmony with it and not against it. There's some research I've been doing that actually starting to point to the fact that when we do get sick and where we're exposed to different viruses and different bacteria and different parasites, these things are actually helping us by potentially either giving our bodies something that it doesn't have or isn't getting from the environment or from the food we're eating, or by helping our body do certain processes that it was not doing adequately before. And this is where, when you look at the different stages of development, when a child's developing and they have, things like the measles and things like the chicken pox and these different things that we're so afraid of now, and we've been conditioned to be so afraid of now, but all of these different viruses and different diseases actually had a purpose. And when a child is able to make it through those, they now have the resilience and they have their own natural vaccine against those things. And again, this is the whole point that I'm trying to drive at here. Focus on how you can be more resilient to the situations that life is going to inevitably throw at you and the things that you're inevitably going to be exposed to with every breath that you take, versus living in fear and trying to prevent everything from happening, and trying to place yourself in this bubble where you believe that nothing is going to penetrate you as long as you continue to wear a face mask and continue to wear gloves and wash your hands and stay 6 feet away from people and kill everything on every surface, including your own body. This again is going against the whole idea of what we actually are as human beings that live in harmony with nature, versus human beings that are trying to go to war against nature. So I hope this makes sense, and I hope you can see what I'm trying to drive at here and see how this can be implemented in your life. There are times where I'll purposely eat things off the floor, or I'll purposely not wash my hands every time, or hell, I haven't even used hand sanitizer since this whole thing started, because I purposely want to expose my body to the things that can potentially harm it, so that I can become more resilient to it, so that I can have the freedom to go about my life without having to worry about some stupid disease or something that's going to create harm. This isn't to say that I'm purposely trying to make myself sick or purposely trying to injure myself. But again, I always relate these things back to training. If you didn't try to push your limits to a reasonable extent of what you believe that your current capabilities are, you're not going to be able to gain the strength to move past those limits. If I always lifted at 70 or 80% and I never tried to push past 100%, my strength level is always going to stay at 70 or 80%. But I also don't show up to the gym and try to lift 120% because I know that my body isn't ready for that yet. But I might try 101 because that's just going to help me continue to move the needle forward in a logical and intelligent manner. So that's it, and I'll talk to you guys next time.